what this very powerful tool is exactly about. Over to you, Manoj ji.
Yeah, thank you, Anmolji. Friends, today's session is very, very special because today all of we are celebrating the 8th GST day along with the CA day. So, on the behalf of the Texo team, I will convey my best wishes for both the occasions to all. Uh, Friends, almost 4 years back, Taxo introduced one of the most dynamic encyclopedia on GST, or you can say the GST case library, with the support of all of you. Our journey till now, as per the expectation, and thank you all for the choosing us as your dependable GST knowledge partner. Taxo one side has updated GST case laws, more than 50,000 GST case laws available in library with the detailed case notes, sample drafts, query replies. These are the options which with our USPs, and other than this, updated act, rule, FAQ commentaries are basic things which is also available. The unique concept with the Texo is that the weekly interaction session prime time with the experts on the complicated GST matters and landmark judgments on GST is our major USP, and that's the reason most of the professionals like our products because they get the opportunity to interact with the leading experts on the weekly basis, and these interactions giving them the edge in the profession and their practice, especially in the field of the GST litigation. As mentioned by Anmol ji, today we have the former Chief Commissioner of Customs CGST, Upender sir with us. CA Atul Gupta ji, former president of ICI and leading expert on GST, is with us as our distinguished panelist, and Anmol ji, our moderator for the today's sessions, and going to help us in learning from the our distinguished panelist. Now, I will not take too much of time and hand over the baton to Anmol ji to take today's session forward. Over to Anmol ji.
Thank you, Manoj ji. So friends, coming back to the today's panel discussion, we have with us CA Atul Gupta ji, who is the past president of ICAI and is currently serving as a board member of Indian Federation of Accountants (IFAC). Atul Gupta ji is a renowned name in the field of indirect taxation and has delivered more than 1800 lectures, including training to GST officials, and has authored many publications on indirect taxation. With his commitment to thorough research, diligent advocacy, and strategic thinking in the face of complex indirect tax challenges, he has been successful in various tax litigation matters up to tribunal level. Atul Gupta ji is a senior partner in Apran Associates LLP Chartered Accountants and heading the indirect tax division of the firm. Then, friends, we have with us CA Upender Gupta ji, who is a 1990 batch IRS and recently retired as Chief Commissioner of CGST Panchkula Zone. Upender sir holds multiple professional qualifications, being a chartered accountant, cost accountant, company secretary, and a law graduate. During his tenure of 33 years working in indirect taxes, sir has led introduction of GST in the country in July 17, as you all must have heard just now between with the discussion between Atul sir and Upender sir. And for his efforts also, he has been honored with Prime Minister's Award for Excellence in Public Administration and Presidential Award of Appreciation Certificate for Distinguished Record of Service. With this, friends, let us start today's discussion. So, friends, firstly, we'll learn about the journey and the way forward of GST so far, journey so far and the way forward from 1st July 2025 from the experts, and then we'll come to the live question and answer session. So I would request you all to put your questions in the Q&A chat box in the meanwhile that we are having discussion with the esteemed panelist. So, Atul sir, I will come to you first. I just want to know what, as in your experience, आपके अपने अनुभव में, आपके अपने तजुर्बे में, आपका क्या मानना है सर? 8 साल में जीएसटी की जर्नी कैसी रही? जीएसटी के बारे में हमें थोड़ा सा बताइए सर कि हाउ इट हैज़ एक्चुअली अचीव्ड द ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस एंड गोइंग फॉरवर्ड व्हाट ऑल थिंग्स अ टैक्स पेयर और अ प्रोफेशनल शुड कीप इन माइंड आफ्टर completing 8 years of GST. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Anmol ji, and respected CA Upendra Gupta ji, Manoj Kapoor ji, team Taxo. At the outset, happy CA Day to all of you. And even apart from the CA Day, today is the Doctor Day and the GST Day as well. So happy Doctor Day and happy GST Day to all my friends, viewers, and specifically to CA Upendra Gupta ji. So practically, I was just mentioning that the GST, though it is the mandate by the leadership at the parliament level, But at the ground level, Upendra Gupta ji remained very, very instrumental, and the force, I will say, the power behind the implementation of the GST, which is giving a lot of, I will say, the fruit and the support to the entire economic system of the country. So thanks to CA Upendra Gupta ji for your very, I will say, the very dedicated efforts of bringing the GST, not only the GST, bringing of the GST, but also the responsiveness. So when the Anmol was mentioning about me about this 8-year journey, the one thing which I always admire, the most admire, is about the responsiveness of the government. That when the GST was introduced, yes, we got very less time to implement, and that's why there were a lot of queries and the practical issues were there from the industry. But C. Upendra Gupta ji and his team managed so well that every day there was one or the other circular or notification or clarification was there, so that the industry, wherever the I will say the gaps were there or the expectations was there from the industry, immediate solution was provided by the team headed by C. Upendra Gupta ji. So today when we see the a better GST, more seamless, or I will say the ease of doing, giving the ease of doing to the industry. The credit goes to CA Upendra Gupta ji, and we are very fortunate that today, on this 8th anniversary of the GST, we have with us CA Upendra Gupta ji himself, who will be sharing his journey towards this all these 8 years. Friends, when we talk about the GST, we are all eager to hear CA Upendra Gupta ji, but just to say a few things, that one very important aspect which I feel that is the blessing of the GST is about the to the industry. That before the GST was introduced, you are aware that there were many laws, whether it is a central law or a state law, wherein the one industry has to comply all of them. So practically it was becoming so difficult, and even state to state. For example, the VAT provisions were different from state to state, procedures were different. So practically there was a huge team which the organization has to manage, not only at the center level but also at the state level. But after the introduction of the GST, all the state and center law, indirect taxes law, got subsumed into the GST, which not only offer the ease of doing but also give the competitive advantage to the industry as well. Once this intersectoral credit, that is the credit of the VAT for the service tax, and the service tax of the VAT was not available, but in the GST it is made available. When the tax on tax was there, the cascading effect was there, that you have to pay the VAT on the excise, including the excise duty. And also there was a double taxation on many things like restaurant and other activity, where the VAT and service tax was simultaneously applicable. So they all these things were making the our services and the product less efficient, less competitive at the global level. And after the introduction of the GST, not only the industry got the benefit of these all aspects, but also making our product more competitive. It also offered the ease of doing, as the you can say that today you have to comply with only one law, though at the different states you have to take the registration, and that includes some kind of a compliance burden, but still you have to follow the one law, one procedure, and the understandings, interpretations are common. So that helps the industry, and the benefit or the icing on the cake is that everything is on an electronic mode. So it is not that you have to take the 20 registration or 10 registration if you are there in the 20 states or 10 states, but you can file your returns online through the electronic mechanism available. So there is no practically the physical team as such for accounting purpose or other tax purpose is not required. My dear friend, you can see the buoyancy in the collection of the taxes because of this seamless and the easiness and the less interpretative issues. Today, the government is collecting practically the double of the amount which was otherwise collected at the center and the state level in the erstwhile regime of the service tax, excise, and the VAT. So the benefit of the government to the government is there. Yes, there are some issues which I just wish to highlight in the presence of CEO Upendra Gupta ji, that the formation of the GST tribunal, though we believe that in the very soon they will be constituted, but is always still a pain point for the industry, because the litigation is becoming costlier when at the level, at the after the commissionerate, the appeal one level, we have to approach to the honorable high courts in case the justice is not perceived to be received. by the industry, and many times the honorable high courts are also giving the direction that the alternative remedies are available, so you have to wait for the formation of the tribunal. So that is increasing the liability of the SSC, because in case the SSC will get the finalization of the situation that whether we have to pay the tax or not, at least the interest burden will not be there. But today the interest burden of at the rate of 18% is going on. It's already 8 years, so I believe that very soon the tribunals will be getting established under the guidance of again the ministry vis-a-vis the Upendra Gupta ji and other senior colleagues. My dear friend, apart from that, Anmol asked me that to speak on the future. So I will only say one thing, that the litigation will be a very, very important aspect in the GST in the times to come. You are aware that there are many procedural aspects which are got streamlined. Today, the GSTN is working very efficiently. So you can the more than 1.5 crore SSCs are filing their returns seamlessly on the platform, on the GIT platform offered by the GSTN. So practically, there are, even I will not say that the problems may not be there, but it will be very minimum complaints are there. But when we talk about the litigation, there will be because once the law will get settled and the audits, anti-evasion, DGGI, other inquiries will be there. So there will be a lot of litigations which will be started. Already it is being started. The 2 years, that is 2017-18 and 18-19, already become time barred even under section 73 and 74. So practically for them, the litigation is over already. The show cause notices are being issued. They are under the different stages. But for the 1920 and onwards, there will be a lot of litigations, notices will be there. And it is important for our professional colleagues that we prepare ourselves for this litigation. We should not see that what is this law, but we should have to learn that why this is law, why this law is there. And accordingly, you have to understand the interpretation, the jurisprudence, so that you can very well articulate the various provision of the GST. And you should need to learn in the times to come that how to draft a good reply, how to draft a good appeal, so that the representation from the professional colleagues can be more, I will say, the more valuable, more enriched, and ultimately the purpose of, as I used to say, the chartered accountants are the synonymous of the GST. So ultimately the knowledge, the skill set which is available with the chartered accountants can be made useful for even further when these litigations will be there in the system, so that more and more things get clarified for the larger interest of the industry. I believe that when we talk about the India is to achieve the status of a developed country by 2047, the GST will be one of the most important pillar in that particular vision or the dream which we have. And as I mentioned you, that the CA Upendra Gupta ji will always be recognized for his wonderful contribution when he worked day and night, burned his midnight oil, that to see that the GST will see the light of the day, and not only see the light of the day, but also get more and more smoother with the passage of the time. So, friends, this was all from my side, and we are all eager to hear the journey from CA Upendra Gupta ji and what is the way forward under the GST for the next few years, so that we can prepare ourselves for that particular aspect, which under the wisdom of the CA Upendra Gupta ji will be shared shortly. Over to you, CA Anmol Gupta ji.
Thank you, sir. I must say that you've given a very practical and a very excellent overview of your experience with respect to the GST in last 8 years and the way forward. What I have the key points that I have taken is regarding the responsiveness of the authorities in timely issuance of the clarifications to the assessees, leading to less litigation, and the constitution of GST appellate tribunal, which is the need of the hour, as well as the professionals should be ready with the litigation that is about to come with the constitution of GST appellate tribunal. Thank you so much, sir. Sir, over to Upendra sir. Sir, same question goes from you. Atul sir has given us a very practical and a very detailed uh, experience regarding the GST. Now, from your perspective, I want to understand the same I want to take the same question, sir, that according to you, what has been the journey of GST so far in last 8 years, and what should be the way forward? What should be the taxpayers and the professionals way forward regarding the GST in the times to come? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Anmolji. Thank you, Taxo, for giving me this opportunity. My dear friend Atulji, Manojji, and the entire Taxo team. So it is my privilege to be on this platform, particularly on the eighth birthday, if I can use this word, of the biggest indirect tax reform, GST. So I happen to be leading the team introducing GST, and thereafter for few years ensuring the smooth implementation. And believe me, nothing was possible, nothing would have been possible but for the political leadership and the support and the direction given to me by my seniors, and the the cooperation, the help, the hard work which was being done by my entire team. So when we say GST is the biggest tax reform, yes, it was the biggest tax reform, because you might recollect that at that point in time, in 2010, I think first time it was said that we should bring, sorry, in 2004 it was said that we should bring GST from 1st April 2010, but ultimately it could come from 1st of July 2017. So lot of background work was done, lot of efforts were done. There were differences in views between the center and the states, and among the states also. They were all ironed out because of the political leadership, political sagacity of the leaders at that point in time. And then the GST was introduced from 1st July 2017. There used to be talk that whether we were ready to introduce GST from 1st July 17, or some different date could have been better, a little later, maybe 8 10 months, so that GSTN would have been more ready, more readier. But I think that issue was tackled by way of, by way of the responsiveness of the authorities at that point in time, right from top to the last point. So whenever any issue was brought to the notice of the authorities, it was taken in right earnest, and clarifications were issued, rules were amended, circulars were issued, some clarifications were issued via the press release, via Twitter handles, and so on. So, up till that time, I never thought, that the law at the national level can be discussed, can be clarified using social media. But that was the time when the social media was used extensively, and the efforts were made to clarify the issues which were being raised by the industry, by the tax consultants, and so on, so that the implementation of law could be smoother. So you know all the benefits of GST. Atul Bhai have also mentioned a few of them. So the biggest is that the non-trade barriers were removed. There are no checkposts. Law is uniform throughout the country. The rules, procedures, tax rates, tax payment, business processes, all are same. Dual levy of GST, could we have gone for the single levy? That always is a issue which is discussed whenever we talk about GST. But probably GST as a dual levy was a necessary evil, and it continues to be necessary evil because of the division of taxation powers between the center and states when we became independent and the constitution was introduced in the year 1950, when the taxation powers were divided between center and state. You know that the tax on manufacture, the excise duty was being levied by the center, the service tax was being levied by the center, and the tax on the distributive trade, the VAT, was being levied by the states. So it was but natural that both the tax authorities should be administering the tax laws, and therefore the consensus was reached that there should be a dual levy. So when it was decided to have a dual levy, the necessary consequence was that the CGST should be administered by the CGST authorities and the SGST should be administered by the state authorities. But that would have been played havoc, and the overt goal of the introducing GST, that is the ease of doing business, would have gone for a six. So therefore, the council agreed and decided a novel idea of administrative assignment of the taxpayers. So you are aware that the registration process, the refund process, the audit, the scrutiny of returns is done by the authority to whom a taxpayer is administratively assigned. So for example, if a taxpayer is administratively assigned to the state, then the audit, the scrutiny of returns cannot be done by the central authorities and vice versa. One pain point which still is there is with respect to enforcement, because enforcement is one activity, one method of compliance verification which is being done by both the authorities. So for that, a well laid down procedure is there that it should be done by one authority, irrespective of the authority to whom the taxpayer is administratively assigned, and the other authority should not do for the same tax period for the same issue. But there are aberrations which are, challenges of tax administration when so much large number of taxpayers are tax officers are working. So little bit, some bit of aberrations are noticed, and I am sure that the council must be noticing that how to take care of those aberrations also. The biggest hallmark of GST was that the government was responsive, and that is apparent from the fact that till 30th June 2017, that means in the first 7 years of GST, we are celebrating 8th birthday. So about 250 circulars have been issued. It is not a small number. In my entire career, up till the time the GST was introduced, I think not more than 100, not more than 75 to 100 circulars were issued during, and I had spent about 25 years by that time. So in just a limited period of 8 years, issuing clarifications with respect to various issues under GST, 250 circulars issuance is by no means a mean achievement of the authorities who are handling the TRU and the GST policy wing. Large number of notifications have been issued, tax rates. So there used to be a lot of criticism of the government on this aspect that रोज कोई ना कोई सर्कुलर आ जाता है, रोज कोई ना कोई नोटिफिकेशन आ जाता है, जीएसटी समझें तो कैसे समझें, इनको कोई काम नहीं है, ये तो सर्कुलर निकाल के बैठ जाते हैं, समझने हमें पड़ता है, हमें इम्प्लीमेंट करना होता है, हमें जो है ना टैक्स कंसल्टेंट्स को हर टाइम वन हैज टू बी ऑन इट्स टोज. So but I believe that if that was not done, the implementation would not have been smooth. So the some other sort of criticism would have been there कि sir, government is completely unresponsive. GST लाद दिया और उसके बाद भूल गए कि GST आ गया, और everyone on his own and suffering the GST, the pains of the new law. So that is what we used to, the entire team used to discuss, that in any manner the government is going to get a flag for introduction of GST. So whether you issue circulars, then you get this flag of bringing or making changes every day, or if you don't do this, then you will get the flag of being completely unresponsive. And The second approach would have led to disaster, in the sense that, the law would have become very unpopular, which is not the case now. So, over a period of time, the things have settled down. The law has broadly settled down, and the number of circulars, clarifications, notifications have gone down considerably, because now very few irritants have remained. I would not say that the law has settled completely, but yes, it has settled broadly. It is a young law. It has spent only, it is only eighth birthday. So if you see the Customs Act, or for that matter the Income Tax Act, still there are a lot of challenges. So because when there is a law, obviously it is subject to interpretation, and human mind is a fertile mind. So you are bound to get different kind of interpretations, different type of cases, and different type of litigation, both from the when the tax officers do the compliance verification, and from the tax consultants when they advise their clients, and from the from the industry also. So now, if I have to trace the history of last 8 years, so it was introduced in a particular manner on 1st July 17, and as I said, the large number of circulars, clarifications, notifications have been issued. So, and then little bit of tweaking has been done in almost every business process during last 8 years. So if I start talking about those little bit of tweakings post introduction of GST on 1st July 17 till 30th June 2025, in last 8 years, then if I talk about uh, some kind of uh, let us start from the registration. So registration was very easy business process. You apply for registration, it would be given in 3 days, and it will be deemed to be granted if it is not if it is not done within that specified period. So what was the result? Result was that many large number of unsurplus persons have obtained registration and started playing havoc with the ITC system, and fake credits were introduced into the system, and putting large amount of revenue on stake. So in the process, the honest business taxpayers have also suffered. So what has been done on registration? Over a period of time, the registration process has been little strengthened. Now you have to undergo Aadhaar authentication. If you don't go the physical verification, geotagging of the registered premises. There was no provision for suspension of registration, because we never anticipated at that point in time that there would be requirement of cancelling the registration left, right, and center, because many unscrupulous persons would get into the system. So therefore the provision of suspension of registration pending cancellation of registration was introduced. Then new grounds of cancellation of registration were introduced, and the registration process has now been strengthened. So now there is a criticism that getting registration it has become a very difficult exercise in GST. But probably the recently the SOPs have been issued by CBIC, so as to give this the persons requiring new registration a little bit of sense that the government will go out of the way to grant registrations to genuine taxpayers. So that is what has happened on the registration side. So starting from a very simple sort of registration, simple system of registration, seeing the response of unsurplus persons in the system during last 8 years, the registration process has become little difficult. And now the Aadhaar authentication, taking photographs of the people, linkage of the email and the mobile number which has been given at the time of obtaining PAN, and making compulsory the bank account number in the registration particular. So all those things are being done, have been done, and the process is being strengthened. And it may look onerous to get satisfy these requirements at this point in time, or one may feel that get taking registration is not a easy cakewalk. But to my mind, it is important so that the pain points thereafter, later on when you do this system, becomes less, so that you don't suffer the menace of fake credits, of fake register, of getting into transaction with wrong kind of registered person, so that you suffer long proceedings because you have entered into transactions with such persons. Now, the composition scheme was introduced only for goods, that too with 50 lakhs of turnover, which was increased to 75 lakhs, which was later on increased to 1 crores. It was never thought at that point in time that the composition scheme would be required for services also. In fact, there was none in the pre-GST regime for the supplier of services, but it was introduced. So, uh, one more trade-friendly measure was introduced, I think, right in the second year of introduction of GST, that the composition scheme for service providers was introduced. Then some tweaking was done with reference to the time of supply provisions. In the VAT regime and in the central excise regime, no tax was payable on the receipt of advances on sale of goods, either by the manufacturer or by the seller. But it was introduced in GST so that the supplier of goods and services were kept at par. So, looking at the pain point, the requirement of paying tax on receipt of advances from the in case of supply of goods was done away with. So the another issue was with reference to the issuance of invoice in case of RCM supplies. So that time limit of 30 days was also introduced. So what does these steps show? That the government has been responsive, and the whatever trade and industry or the consultants or government on its own has thought about, they have been bringing changes. Mostly they have been trade friendly provisions, but then there are provisions which some may say that they are not that trade friendly. Now the e-way bill was not introduced right on 1st July. It was first introduced on 1st of February 18, and I was in the ministry, and the entire supply system came to a grinding halt when the e-way bill was introduced. So, it was rolled back. So government was that responsive that the e-way bill system was rolled back, and then it was introduced in a graded manner. First with interstate, then with intrastate, that too in a staggered manner in different states. Export is one of the biggest sectors uh, for the earning of foreign exchange. So, lot many relaxations, if I can use that word, were given for the export sectors. LUT was made compulsory instead of bond. Earlier, both were option, but now people export under bond. Then allowing advance authorization for sourcing from abroad was allowed. Then the novel idea of creating a audit trail by paying 0.1% of the total tax was introduced for the merchant exporters, so that the blockage is of the finance is not there at their end. Now, similar change has been done recently for the compensation cess also, where the compensation cess also now can be 0.1%, so that the merchant exporter can export uh, without any hassle. Then, if the value of export increases, then the more refund was also allowed. Those changes were done. Now coming to the refunds, lot many work was done by the government during last 8 years. the once when the GST was started, when it was introduced, then the entire refund process was manual. Then I think from September 19, the entire refund module has been automated. A system of refund of IGST paid on exports was introduced from the from the custom side. It was never envisaged when the GST was being discussed and developed. So those changes were done. Earlier, you may be aware that the refunds were being given by both the center and the state authority. The center was giving refund of the CGST and IGST and compensation cess, whereas the state was giving the refund of SGST portion. So down the line, whether the refund is to be processed and sanctioned by the center or by the state, the refund is being granted by the center, the entire amount. And at the back end, the settlement take place between the center and the state. Then system of withdrawal of refund application was introduced. The time period taken for issuance of deficiency memo was done away with. Then Rule 9610 was omitted. So all in all, the refund process, the effort was made for making the refund process smoothen. Then few more categories of refund were allowed. Earlier, only registered person could have taken the refund. Now even an unregistered person can take the refund by filing the refund. For example, I have booked a flat. The builder says that I can't give you refund because I have already deposited that money with the government. So if I have cancelled the booking, I can apply for the refund which has been paid by the builder. Similarly, refund on exports, electricity export of electricity was introduced. So, such changes were made from time to time. Now coming to the ITC. ITC is one of the chapters of the law which to my mind was a huge improvement over the Sandvet credit tools as were prevalent in the pre-GST regime, in the central excise and service tax, and similar kind of VAT ITC provisions were there on the VAT side also. So there was a fixed list popularly called blocked credit, 17.5. So only on those items the ITC was not permissible. On other items the ITC was permissible. Then the Safari case, then this fake credits, cancellation of registration of the supplier from the retrospective, that its impact on the ITC availability, the payments of tax having been made to supplier but the supplier has not deposited, and the ITC in the hands of the buyer being asked to be reversed. So these issues are a pain point of the taxpayer and tax administration both. So lot of litigation is going on this aspect, and I am sure that this aspect will also get settled, because there are contradictory decisions wherein the provisions of the law have been held to be constitutional by some high courts, and not unconstitutional, but they have said that these are not the good provisions, and therefore the I think the time has arrived that the honorable Supreme Court would take a call on these requirement, that whether the tax should be paid by the supplier before the ITC can be taken by the recipient. But simultaneously, changes have been lot many changes have been done in the ITC provisions also, and some of them are beneficial to the trade. Coming to the returns, so returns have undergone a complete change. The way it was introduced, we were having GSTR 1, 2, 3 at the time of introduction of GST. So 2 and 3 could not work out. So therefore 3A was introduced. Now instead of 2, we have 2B. So now we have system of 1 which gets auto-populated as 2B, and 1 plus 2B gets auto-populated as 3. So now we have a system of self auto-populating returns, and the returns, if there are no activities, no supply, no inward or outward supply, and if somebody wants to file a nil return, a facility of filing by SMS has been introduced. GSTR 9 for taxpayers having turnover up to 2 crores has been done away with. Taxpayers having turnover of more than 5 crore have to file 9C, but a self-certified 9C, not certified by any professional. The QRMP scheme was introduced, quarterly return monthly payments. Late fees have been rationalized from time to time. Now HSN codes are being asked to be entered into the return. The default system of return filing now has become 1 and 3B for the supplier. The supplier's 1 becomes the recipient's 2B, and the recipient has to file his 1, 2B, and 3. uh, Returns cannot be filed after 3 years of the due date. So that is an important aspect, that restriction is there. So if some of the friends or their clients have not filed the return, they may ensure that the returns are filed within 3 months of the within 3 years, because beyond 3 years return will not be allowed to be filed. Lot many changes have been done in the way tax is being paid in the electronic cash ledger. The biggest is that one can make payments through IMPS, from UPI, from debit card. When the GST was introduced, only the payment was being done only through the bank account or through the RTGS, e-banking or RTGS or NEFT. So additional mode of payments have now been introduced in the form of UPI and the debit cards. The balances lying in the minor heads or major heads can be have been allowed to be transferred. Then between the distinct persons, the balance lying in the cash ledger can also be transferred. So these are all trade friendly measures which have been introduced with reference to the electronic cash ledger. E-invoice was introduced. It was not envisaged at the time of introduction of GST. So it was introduced with, for those taxpayers whose turnover was more than 100 crores, now 5 crores and above. The taxpayers whose turnover is above 5 crores, they have to file e-invoice. So issuing e-invoice and e-way bill, now they are auto-populated in GSTR1. So over a period of time, what i what my experience tells me, that lot of efforts have gone into the making GST as a digitalized tax. So more and more activities are being digitalized, so that they look onerous when you submit that information, when you issue, when you are asked to raise e-invoice, when you are asked to issue e-way bill, when you are asked to verify your GSTR2B. But these are all ultimately trade friendly measures, because the data punching errors, the mismatches goes down considerably, and therefore the life becomes smoother at a subsequent point in time. The anti-profiteering measures were introduced, and the now the anti-profiteering cases have been transferred to the GStat. I am told the president of the GStat had held the some anti-profiteering cases heard today. So that is the beginning, if I can say, of GStat today. That some anti-profiteering cases were heard by the president of the GStat. Atul Bhai have mentioned about the dire need of having GStat, uh, and no delay, no further delay should be there. So my, as far as I know, the last hurdle, uh, there was a case filed in the Odisha High Court regarding the selection process of the members of the tribunal, GStat, that has been dismissed by the Odisha High Court on 26th of June. What I understand is that the selection committee, which will select the the judicial members and the member technical of center, they have submitted their recommendation to the government, and probably now the government is in the process of completing the selection process. So I anticipate that the GStat we should be seeing GST any day. Now, with the selection committee having submitted its representation, and there is no more hurdle in appointment of the members. Similarly, lot many changes have been done on the appellate mechanism also. The biggest change which has been introduced is the introduction of the monetary limits below which the appeals cannot be filed before GStat or High Court or Supreme Court. So this was the provision in the Customs Act, it still is there, and these were the provisions introduced in the Central Excise and Service Tax. So now, if the amount of revenue involved is up to 20 lakhs only, the appeal will not cannot be filed before GStat. So that I mean the department cannot file appeal. So that commissioner appeals order or additional commissioner appeal order would become final if the amount involved is up to 20 lakhs. Similarly, for High Court and Supreme Court, this limit is 1 crore and 3 crore respectively. So GStat appellate rules have already been introduced, and so therefore the last point here is that the amount of pre-deposit, the maximum amount of pre-deposit has been considerably reduced. Earlier, I think it was 25 crores or 50 crores. Now it has been reduced from that amount. And one more provision of withdrawal of appeal has been introduced, which was not envisaged at the time of introduction of GST. Waiver scheme is in earlier the 16(4) waiver scheme was there, so the taxpayers have taken advantage of that. The waiver scheme for the first 3 years, waiver from the interest and penalty, the last date for payment has gone by, but the filing of the applications in SLP 1 and 2 is on. So with that, the litigation hopefully would come down. Lot many new schemes were introduced post introduction of GST, which was never envisaged at as on 1st July 7. So, what are those schemes? I'll touch upon few of them. For builders and developers, new scheme, as you are aware, was introduced with lower rate of tax with no ITC from 1st of April 2019. A special scheme was introduced for the supplier of bricks. Then a special scheme was introduced for the valuation of renewable energy equipments like solar plants. So 70-30 ratio was introduced. So all this was done to reduce the litigation in the respective scheme. The compensation cess calculation was changed to RSP instead of the SSL value on tobacco products. Then packing machines details were asked to be introduced with respect to the manufacture of packing machines. So these provisions were introduced basically to curb evasion. So the new tax rate, new tax scheme, or a clarificatory kind of scheme, whatever way you want to see, it was introduced with respect to the online gaming, gambling, etc. The ISD provisions have been made compulsory from 1st of April 2025. Although when the GST was being discussed and introduced, our understanding was that the ISD is mandatory, but because of the issues raised by the trade and industry and by the consultants, it was treated as optional, and now from 1st April 2025 it has been made mandatory. Similarly, the cloud kitchens, the restaurants, the hotels have been brought under Section 9(5) on the pattern of cab service providers like Ola and Uber. So Swiggy's, Oyo rooms, etc., are also now under 9(5), and they have to pay tax on behalf of the service provider. The metal scrap has been introduced under RCM. So, and GTA has been given option to pay tax on the forward charge basis as well as on the RCM basis, whatever they want to, where they want to pay the tax. The latest was from 1st April 2025, that the concept of declared tariff for restaurant service has been done away with. Now you can yourself declare uh, what was the room rent. So it is not on declared tariff, but it is on the actual or on the declared value. So Schedule 3 has the scope of Schedule 3 has been broadened. The supplies in the FTZs, etc., have been made no supply. Similarly, some changes were done with reference to the insurance sectors. Schedule 2 has been de-linked from Section 7. That was the major pain point, that there was a view that if something is declared in Schedule 2, it will be deemed to be supply. But the law was changed that Schedule 2 is to be used only for classification purposes, whether it is supply of goods or supply of services. So, and first, that activity has to satisfy the test of being a supply. So overall, if I can conclude, then I would say that, and it is a general feeling also, I'm not saying anything new, that the government has been responsive to the core. They issued circulars, they heard industry, they heard tax consultants, and lot many changes have been done over last 8 years. Some of the changes which were never thought of that they would be required, they have also been done during last years. The government has introduced some provisions and then backtracked because the industry said that they are not ready. So it was backtracked like e-way bill, and then it was reintroduced in a staggered manner. So all in all, the GST, I would say that 90 to 95% whatever was thought have been achieved. The goals which were set for introduction of GST, 90 to 95% of them have been achieved. More or less, the law has settled. It is a young law. So another couple of years maybe, the law would completely settle down. Some pain points which are urgently required attention. One is the introduction of establishment of GSTAT. Then the rate rationalization. Rate rationalization is a big ticket item which has to be, and as you are aware that a group of ministers is already working on it. So probably the 12% and 18% slab could be merged into one slab, so that most of the classification disputes can go away, because the disputes to my mind arise only the goods falling in these two, because 5% and 28% are very few items. Then, what is the alternate mechanism for revenue generation? Because the compensation says also the end date is approaching. The compensation says was for 5 years. Now, what is being collected as compensation says is being used for repayment of loan which the government has taken to pay the compensation, which was, there was a shortfall due to the during the COVID time. So one has to work out along with the rate rationalization the mechanism of garnering revenue which is today coming from compensations. As for example, tobacco products, the rate of tax is about 100% or maybe more than that in some cases. Whereas there is a limitation in the GST law that the tax rate cannot go beyond 20 plus 20. It is ring fenced in this act. So what would be the mechanism? Will it require the changes in the tax laws in the CGST Act, or there would be some other mechanism? I am sure GOM would submit its recommendation and the council would take a view how to handle these two situations. Then the compliance mechanism is a big pain, particularly for multi-locational industry, because they have to suffer audits for each of their registrations separately, scrutiny of returns separately, then some way out of centralized kind of scrutiny of return or audit probably is one area one can look at to ease the pain point. Similarly, it should be ensured that the enforcement activity is done by one authority. The parallel proceeding should not be there at all. The mechanism has to be there. If some suggestions are there, I am sure the suggestions can be given to the CBIC and to the GST Council, so that Council can examine and ensure that thing happen. Then uh, the litigation, how to reduce the litigation, uh, how to how to improve the quality of the shoka notices, orders being passed by the adjudicating authorities or the appellate authorities. I am sure that with the introduction of GST and once GSTAT start functioning, then this one area probably would get some guidance from GSTAT so that the quality improves. So, all in all, the GST, to my mind, has achieved its major objectives, if not the entire objectives. We started with a good GST, aspiring to become the best, and we are somewhere nearing that. I would not say that we have become the best, but certainly we have taken a long leap towards that end. So that is all from my side. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure that in last 30, 45, 30, 40 minutes, we have covered almost entire GST, and you have very beautifully summed up the last 8 years of GST and what is the need of our going forward after 8 years of GST. You have discussed how the social media was used for circulation at mass level. You have discussed various clarifications that were issued, which was the need of the hour, and what exactly was the intent behind issuing those clarifications. From the other side of the table, the registration, e-way export, composition scheme, refunds, return filing mechanism, which has completely changed, Safari case, ITC, trade-friendly measures like invoice, GST appellate tribunal, withdrawal of appeal. So you have practically, sir, in last few minutes, you have discussed everything that is there in the GST law. And I'm sure, like me, all of our participants have learned a lot regarding what the journey of GST has been in last 8 years. So, sir, quickly moving forward to the questions that we have received, I will take the question, sir, if you allow, sir.
Yeah.
So, sir, first question is from Soman NL. This question is regarding, sir, amnesty scheme under section 128A, wherein as per the circular number 238, entry number 4, para 4, the circular says that interest and penalty benefit will not be given in case of self-assessed tax under 7512. So the query is regarding this fact that no such condition is imposed in section 128A, read with rule 164. So whether such a condition in the circular which restricts the benefit granted under the Act and rules is legally tenable, can a circular override the express provisions of the Act and rules is what the participant is asking, sir.
Actually, if you will see that, 7512, if the case falls in 7512, and what are those cases? That there is a difference between 1 and 3B. One supply is more in 1, but payment has been made less through 3B, or where the supply was for previous month, but the supply has been reported in the next month's return. Then in such a case, no show notice is required according to 7512, nor any show notice is required for interest thereon for the late payment of the tax. So, therefore, the show notice itself should not be issued, and therefore, the question of waiver doesn't arise. That is what probably the circular says. So, but if in spite of that provision, the show cause notice have been issued, then one has to take a argument that if that was the case, why a show cause notice has been issued, and if a show cause notice has been issued, this para doesn't apply to me. So that analogy has to be taken, and this argument also has to be taken that this is a condition which is not there in 128A or 164, Rule 164. So therefore, but it is again a matter of litigation. Tax officer probably would reject, and one has to go in appeal.
Thank you, sir. So the next question is from Mr. Tushar Sabharwal. His client has wrongly deposited IGST on rent. He has only rental income. Now he has properly deposited CGST and SGST on the same. So this question is regarding sir section 77. But when we are applying for the refund, it was asking for order number and order date as mandatory option. However, there is wrong filing of GST of 1 and 3B, which was later rectified. Hence, what should I do while filing the refund application?
Just 1 second, please. Ashish? So I think, to my mind, one has to. What is the solution for this? I don't, because the refund. लेकिन सेक्शन 77 का तो रिफंड मिलता है ना.
हाँ सर, उसके लिए क्लेरिफिकेशन भी आया है कि इवन इफ बिकॉज अर्लियर व्हाट यूज्ड टू हैपन वाज व्हेन देयर वाज अ केस अंडर सेक्शन 77 एंड आई यूज्ड टू suo moto reverse my suo moto pay the tax under the correct head and seek the refund. The refunds were being rejected by the proper officers saying that there was no determination of tax under the correct head. So no officer has actually determined. So there is a clarification, a circular, if I am not wrong. If there is a circular also which says that even if the assessee suo moto pays the tax under correct head, the refund has to be issued.
And that circular also said that it would be limitation would be counted from the
Yes.
day the
Yes.
payment is being made, not from
Correct.
the original date
Yes.
of payment.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So that circular can be used, I think, in such a situation.
And if there is a technical issue on the GST portal that while filing the refund, it is asking for the order number and date, they can file under the other category. If the portal itself is not allowing, there is a issue like that.
Any other category may one can file, or if still problem is not resolved, ticket can be raised.
Yes. There is another query from Mr. Tushar Sabarwal only. His client is a proprietorship concern as and purchased a car in his firm name in 2019 and had not claimed any GST while purchasing the same, as it is blocked credit. Now he has sold the car and depreciated values 10 lakhs in 31st of March 2025, and he has sold the car for 12 lakhs. Do we need to pay GST on the profit earned on sale of car at 18% on 2 lakhs?
There is a contradictory view. I mean, different people are interpreting it differently. Firstly, if the GST has to be paid, it will have to be paid on the entire value, not on the profit. So if the car is sold for 12 lakhs, the GST would be payable on 12 lakhs, not on the profit. But according to me, it is not a supply, because if you read Schedule 1, sale of assets on which ITC has been taken, then only it becomes a supply, because the ITC has not been taken. This is my view, that no GST is payable on the sale of old car on which no ITC was taken, because section 18 is also not applicable. Para 1 or 2 of the schedule 1 to CGST Act is also not applicable. And if somebody takes a view that the GST is payable, then the GST would be payable on the entire consideration, not merely on the profit.
Sir, there is another query from Mr. Tushar Sabharwal who says whose client again is a trader of Havels and GM switches and appliances, and they have received trade discount on achieving the target. So it is a case of target incentive, sir. GST audit department had opened the case and they are asking the trader why you have not reversed ITC on the same. What should we do? Is there any particular provision in regards to the same to prove our point then?
See, ITC is admissible under section 16(2), which says that you can take the credit of the taxes paid on the inward supplies of goods or services, provided you have duty paying document, you have received the goods or services, it reflects in your GSTR 2B, and the supplier has paid the payment, and you have filed your return. Now you have the duty paying document for entire value, that means 100 rupees, if the 100 rupees was the value. Now if you have got 5 rupees as targeted discount, and you know then you are not required to reverse the credit, provided your supplier has issued a commercial note of only the value, not of the tax. If he has issued you the credit note including both for the value on the tax amount, then only you have to reverse the credit. Otherwise you are not required to reverse the credit, and he cannot issue the credit note unless and until you reverse the credit. So therefore, the credit note, the discount should be only towards the value, not towards the tax. And if that happens, then no reversal is required.
So there is a query from Mr. Sanjeev Goski, who asks, where can we send material under returnable delivery challan to a distinct person in another state under same PAN or need to raise invoice with GST?
I think there is no system of sending the goods under returnable challan because it is a supply, schedule 1 supply. So therefore, you have to issue an invoice and pay the tax.
So there's a question. Karnataka state has introduced a cess called the Karnataka Sign and Cultural Activist Welfare Act 2024. Is this valid? I don't think, sir, this is related to GST.
Because earlier the Kerala government has also introduced the Kerala flood cess that was being levied for a few years. So this has nothing to do with GST. But if it is charged, then its value would be included in the section 15 value, and you will have to pay GST on that, because section 15 is very clear that all taxes other than GST taxes would be included in the value.
Sir, there's a query. Is the time validity of 2 years only is applicable for refund claim in case of SEZ supply with IGST?
Yes, I think why not? Because the time limit of 2 years is built in into the law.
Yes, sir. Uh, Sir, a query by Mr. Harshal Patel, Haresh Patel. Proprietor closed his business under GST and e-invoice was applicable now. Proprietor has commercial property and rent is coming, which is over 20 lakhs. So GST number GST number we cannot cancel. But then do we have to do e-invoice for rented income if recipient is registered?
If I think the e-invoice provisions are applicable if the supplier's turnover is more than 20 lakhs and it is a supply. No?
Yes, sir.
So I think it would be applicable.
So there is a query from Mr. Amul Sangar Rajka, whether under GST, after GST audit under Section 765, there are certain disputes which we have not agreed. So after issuance of FAR, who is the proper officer to issue SCN in DRC 1 under Section 73 or 74 for the disputes? Whether the audit team can issue the SCN asking us to respond before the jurisdictional officer.
Yes, there is a circular on this that the audit officer can issue and the DGGI officers can issue the show have to issue the show notice, but they cannot adjudicate. And therefore, in this situation, the audit officer would issue the show notice, and the executive commissionerate officer will be empowered to adjudicate the case.
Sir, I think this power also comes from Section 65 itself, wherein it is mentioned that in case of any discrepancy and if the assessee is not agreed, the proper officer has the power to proceed under Section 73 or 74.
And then there is a circular and that notification also. No?
So there is another query. Can we ask vendor to do bill to our GSTN and ship to another distinct GSTN under same PAN in another state? I believe the
Yes.
answer is yes.
Yeah, yes.
Uh, Whether interest on ITC availed and payment made to vendor beyond 180 days result in Section 74 notice or it is a matter of Section 73. Further, while issuing Section 74 notice, the officer is asking for not only the interest but also reversal of ITC, even though the payment has been made to the vendors, although delayed. Is the officer correct in his approach asking for ITC and also interest under Section 74?
See, to my mind, because you have already made the payment, so therefore the only the interest should be demanded for the differential period, for the late payment. And he should not be asking you to reverse the credit, because the law says that if you have made the payment, you can avail back the credit. The law itself says. So if you have already made the payment with a delay, then only the interest liability arises.
So, sir, though we have other queries also, but timings are running short and we are already 15 minutes past our scheduled time. So, I would like to conclude the session with your permission, sir.
Yes.
So, friends, thank you so much for joining us in huge number today, and thank you so much to Upendra sir, to Atul Gupta sir, and Team Taxo for organizing this beautiful deliberation. Thank you to Upendra sir for sparing your valuable time and giving us some very valuable insights about the journey of GST till date and the way forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Upender sir. Thank you,
Thank
Anmol.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
I request everyone to please take a moment and scan ratetexo.online. The link is also shared in the chat box. So, with that, we come to the end of this wonderful session today. I hope you all found the session informative and insightful. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, sir.